Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. These days, the Irish author Sally Rooney is a straight up star, as big of a star as can come from the literary fiction world. But way back when, in those hazy, crazy days of 2019, she was out promoting the book that would become her breakout hit, Normal People. If you haven't read it or seen the Hulu TV show adaptation, it follows Connell and Marianne, two young people in love and in lust, but they're at an age when it's hard to figure yourself out, much less someone else. And this interview from 2019 between Rooney and NPR's Rachel Martin is an interesting glimpse at how Rooney was thinking about class, masculinity, and the social strata, themes she'd spend an entire career exploring. That's ahead.
This message comes from Whole Foods Market. From big game bites to sideline sips, get everything you need for a watch party victory at Whole Foods Market. Find yellow sale signs all over the store, from the chip aisle, with salty snacks from Kettle and Late July, down to the meat department, where their no antibiotics ever fresh sausages are made in-house. And gear up with effortless, ready-to-heat wings and fresh guacamole from the prepared foods department. Instant touchdown. Fuel your game day with big flavors from Whole Foods Market.
Hey, it's Andrew again. Real quick, just to set it up. Rooney's novel features two people who, for whatever reason, just can't make it work. But they keep trying anyway. Here's Rooney.
The opening phase of their relationship when they're in secondary school is, for various reasons, kept a secret. And even though that secrecy is in a way a little bit oppressive for both of them, I think it's also, in a strange way, kind of liberating, because it means that their relationship is kept apart from the social world and kept protected from it, in a sense. And they find new ways to express themselves and to kind of carve out an identity or a sense of self just for one other person. They're at that age where they're really trying to figure out who they are going to be as adults. They're 17, 18, 19. They don't really know themselves very well yet. And so, I think their intimacy is a really formative part of how they develop an identity in those years.
They are each suffering in some way. Is that what continues to draw them to one another over time? Do they recognize that in each other?
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly true that both of them suffer, but then to what extent do they suffer more than others? I think it's probably true that everyone around them is suffering too, and maybe they're not attuned to the suffering of other people as much as they are to their own. And maybe at that age, for some reason, they offer one another a window into each other's lives that when they look around them at other people in their social lives, in their families, among their friends, they just don't seem to be able to see through other people in the same way that they can see through each other. So maybe it is that they can instinctively recognize that there's a commonality in the kind of suffering that they're experiencing, and that they're just not able to recognize that commonality in other people necessarily.
I guess that's also what struck me, is that they don't seem that self-aware, which is kind of what it means to be an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, that your own perception of your pain is all-encompassing and perhaps disproportionate to the kind of suffering or pain that other people have.
Yeah, I definitely think there are moments in the book where their self-awareness fails hugely. And it may be, because they are very young. They're almost children when we meet them. And then when we leave them, they're 22. But it may also just be that that's what people are like, or I suppose that's what these people are like. I don't know if we met Connell and Marianne down the road 20 years later, that they wouldn't necessarily still be trying to learn some of the same lessons. I don't think that it's necessarily age limited. It may just be individual limited, in the sense that that's just the kind of people that they are, I think.
I'd like to ask about two specific pivot points in the plot. Connell and Marianne grow up together in the same community, and they are affected by the social strata that puts them into various groups, locks them there. What happens when they go to college? They end up going to the same place, right?
Right. So Marianne has kind of convinced Connell to apply for the same university that she's going to, which is a university in Dublin, and he does. Then their relationship in the meantime has completely fallen apart. So they're not even on speaking terms, but they both end up going to this same university. And of course, inevitably, because Dublin is small and because this college is small, they do run into one another. And when they do, they're meeting each other in a very different social context with, having developed kind of different identities in the meantime. So Marianne, who was a social pariah in secondary school, has now become a little bit popular, almost celebrated, whereas Connell, who had so many things going for him in school, finds that the particular forms of masculinity, I suppose specifically working class masculinity, just isn't really available for exchange in this social environment. It's just not working for him. And he feels like very confused and puzzled as to why he can no longer trade on the same kinds of charisma that apparently were so effective when he was in school. And he does feel very lost. So the social positions that they were in seem to have almost exchanged themselves completely.
And then I wanted to ask about another moment where things change for them when Marianne goes to Sweden. Things seem to shift profoundly again then.
Yeah, so Marianne takes an Erasmus year, which is like a program where you can study abroad for a year. And she goes to Lund in Sweden, and Connell stays behind in Trinity. And during that period, they're both suffering. I think not simply or not even primarily because they're apart, but it does mean that the kinds of suffering that they encounter, they don't necessarily have the same coping mechanism they might have if they were together, because they're so used to sort of having each other on hand to work through all the various crises they encounter, many of which are caused by one another. And so when they're apart, I think it's different for them.
You have noted a couple times in the course of our conversation that for you, writing this story, it's not like you had agency over every development, that you were in fact just kind of observing the characters and the tale that was unfolding before you. And I wonder if does it just stop when you finish the last page, or do you find yourself continuing to watch that story unfold? I mean, do you imagine who these people are in middle age, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Certainly when I finished the book, I was still very much with the characters in my mind, and I found these two very hard to let go of. I mean, just because I suppose in one sense I'd spent so much time with them in my brain that I was kind of used to relying on them in a way. And they did stay with me, definitely. But since then, I've started working on new things. And I guess I spend most of my time now with sort of new imaginary people in my brain. And I don't find myself returning to Connell and Marianne in quite the same way or quite so often. But I don't necessarily think it would be impossible for me to return to them substantially later on and sort of find out what they're up to. Like I do like the idea that they're kind of there, and that I can check in with them to see what happens in their later lives. Because I suppose to me, whether or not I did justice to this in the book, I can't obviously say. But to me, they really did feel like full human beings, as it were. Yeah. So I almost believe that they're out there having a life, and that it's just maybe my job down the line is to check in and see whatever became of them.
The novel is called Normal People, written by Sally Rooney. Sally, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim. Visit schwab.com to learn more. This message comes from Mint Mobile. Starting at $15 a month, make the switch at mintmobile.com/switch. $45 upfront payment for 3 months. 5 gigabyte plan equivalent to $15 a month. Taxes and fees extra. First 3 months only. See terms. This message comes from Prolon. Feeling heavy and depleted after the holidays? Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet aims to make it easy to reset your body, habits, and energy heading into the new year. Developed at USC's Longevity Institute, the goal of Prolon's nutrition program is to rejuvenate you from within by working at the cellular level to support fat loss, glowing skin, and sharper focus. Get 15% off plus a bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/NPR.